Hello, 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 loves. I'm going to give it a second for people to jump on here. And if you are, hello, 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 everyone. Hola. So excited. Hello, everyone. Hey, loves. Thank you for being here. If this is your first time, welcome to the Magic of My Ancestors, where we have beautiful pláticas with amazing, amazing people in our community to help spread and share the medicina, the magic, and the storytelling that is so important to continue. I'm sorry, I'm just introducing and bringing on. We're going to have an amazing, amazing maestra come on today, and I'm so excited to be here. Yay!
Hola.
Hola! Hi, Maestra Grace.
Hello, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Well, I am just really excited to be here with you on my first ever Instagram Live.
I know. I'm so excited. Muchas gracias por estar aquí con todos nosotros. We are so happy to have you. For everyone, a little bit Magic of My Ancestors is a beautiful community plática where we can share our journey through our own personal experiences of our medicina and our magic. And I think it's just such a beautiful conversation because like my maestra, Maestra Cici would say, la medicina es para todos, so being able to look inside of ourselves and tap into that beautiful magic sometimes seems so distant, but when we have these pláticas, I hope these conversations, spark a little bit of that magic and spark a little bit of inspiration and hopefully answer some questions, for those in our community who don't quite know how to get there and have been looking for, a sign or an answer or just some inspiration. And so I'm so excited that you're here to share because you and I, we can talk forever. Like last time we were going to go on and on. I know we were. So we're going to get started because I want to be very conscious of your time. Thank you for being here. I will go ahead and allow you to introduce yourself and to share a little bit about yourself before we get started.
Well, thank you. My name is Griselda Alvarez Sesma. I'm of Yaqui descent, and I've been walking the path of Curanderismo officially probably about 35 years now. I'm a grandmother. I've got 5 grandsons. I've got 3 daughters, blended marriage. I divide my time between Colorado and Kumi Island in San Diego, California. What else can I tell you? I mean, there's so much I could share, but it is hard for me to really volunteer. I'd rather just have a plática contigo
And we will.
yeah.
We will. It's going to be great. So for anybody who's here with us, there's a little bubble at the bottom. Before we get started, there's a little bubble at the bottom of your screen with a question mark. It's very difficult to answer questions while we're doing the live. So if you can please just put in any questions that you may have during the plática down at the bottom. At the end, we do make time to have a plática with everybody who joins us, answer any questions that you might have, because we really do want this to be interactive and to hopefully be there to support you in anything that you may need or that comes up for you. But please put your questions in the little bubble because it's really hard just to navigate all those questions. And so we're just gonna get started. So how this works is there is a series of questions. We just go through the questions, we discuss them, and whatever comes up, then that's what creator's supposed to, inspire us to talk about and share about. So if you're ready, we're ready. Yes?
I'm ready.
I'm ready. All right. So how do you define your magic?
Bueno, pues, I don't define it as magic. For
Okay.
me, it is medicine.
Yes.
Right?
So
I
So
mean,
what's your medicine?
I'm sorry, you were saying?
No, so then how would you define your medicina?
Yeah. So my medicina, I can see why some people call it magic because if we really work on ourselves, if we do our own spiritual practice, make it a daily practice, if we look within, if we are brave and courageous to look at those parts of ourselves, our family, our what we see, our interactions with our family members, especially our parents, our moms, we begin to see a pattern. And we also, a pattern of where perhaps, sin querer, without meaning to, we have been um, disempowered by well-meaning family members. And when we walk this path, part of that is learning how to recover those pieces of ourselves that without meaning in many times our parents, our family members took away some of our poder, some of our agency. And so for me, this path of curanderismo as a personal practice is part of recovering, reclaiming, and
Mhm.
making yourself, oneself, as the beautiful expression of medicine in service to our community and to our people.
I love that. And I think that's part of the reason that I think and I feel that these conversations are so important because for so many of us, we had felt that there was something missing, right?
Mhm.
That there was a
Right.
piece of us that maybe we didn't know how to define. You know, I say it's magic for me, and not in the sense of, you know, I'm casting and doing all of these things in that sense, but because it's so much greater than any one thing. It's so much more than any one practice. It's our spirit, it's our medicine, it's creator, it's the ancestors, it's all of these things come together that aren't necessarily defined, but we can feel and we know when it's missing from
Mhm.
us.
Exactly. And I can see why it can be called magic, our conocimientos, because after we've really been working our medicine, I think we begin to see things unfold without our conscious manipulation of people or things, somehow being into that in the flow of the medicine,
Yes,
especially when we make the commitment to serve our community, to be of service, that this path is of the heart, it's of service. Somehow all those pieces that we need just fall into place and become a really beautiful unfolding that doesn't always require us to work hard.
yes,
It just happens like magic, right?
yes. And I think that's the beautiful part, that it doesn't even need a definition, that when you allow yourself to be in flow, when you allow yourself to be in service, when you allow yourself to become,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
And just become whoever that is for you without necessarily having to, you know, if I'm forever a student, right? I've already decided a long time ago I'm forever a student. I'm always going to be learning. You know, there's always something new. So being able to incorporate that and learn from that and grow from that, it constantly evolves. So you constantly get to define what that looks like for you, right? And how we're able to take that without having the judgment or defying the judgment of society standards, of our family standards, of, you know, a colonized mindset and all the things that come with that. So being able to define our own medicina and our own magic and understand that we are given these gifts to be of service and to share, because it is para todos, right? The more that we're able to stand in that space, um, I think is limitless.
Right? Because we're not trying to create an outcome. Just as
Yes.
in, in healing, when we're doing our healing work, when I offer up my prayers, I always say, thank you, Creator. Thank you, grandmothers and grandfathers of the four directions. Thank you, you good doctor spirits. Thank you, you good spirits of nature, for helping me, for bringing me into this place and into this plática to be of service in this way. And to me, that's part of setting my ego aside, my nervousness aside, right? And allow it to unfold the way it's meant to unfold without judging myself, which is something that I've always done. I don't know about you all, but I've always done that, because I think especially when we're Chicanas and we're the first generation after our family has immigrated, usually we're the ones that learn English first. We're the ones who help our family navigate a new culture, a new language, new costumbres, all of those things. And so we're put on, we're giving this task, and we want to do so well that sometimes that becomes ingrained in us and we become overly like perfectionists.
Say.
And I think what you said is very wise, that, we all are lifelong students. I talk to elderly elders, and they still say that. Well, my elders, and they're like 90 years old, and they're talking about their elders and being very humble and talking about how much they don't know.
Because and for me, and we'll finish up this question, because I just think it's so important, and I think it's so beautiful, and thank you for for touching base on being first gen and the pressure that does put on, because a lot of the people who are watching and who that I have found, the women who come, and I'm sure this is your experience too, they are the first generation, and they are trying to now no longer just be a caretaker for their family, but they're trying to take care of themselves and find that path back to themselves without feeling guilty for making their spirit and their healing a priority in their life. So being able to say, this is my medicina, or this is my path, or this is my magic, or however you choose to define that for yourself, I think it's really important for everyone to know that it is okay. It doesn't matter if you're 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 or 80, that you choose to make yourself and your spirit and your healing a priority in your life in a way that only makes sense to you. Because I really believe divine timing is everything, and you're always on time every single time. So I just want to say thank you for bringing that up, because I think it's a really important. So what is ancestor medicine for you specifically? Like what does that feel like for you, your ancestral medicine?
For me, it is the daily guidance I receive from my ancestors. And when I say ancestors, I guess the assumption would be that these are my biological lineage ancestors. But for me, at least, it has been ancestors from different nations, different tribes, that have guided my path since I was very young. And I always feel them with me. So there's been when all of a sudden, I'm aware that there's an absence in the energy around me that I have come to recognize as those ancestors. And usually that is because they have wanted me to learn something without them. It's like when somebody's teaching you how to ride a bike, right? At some point they gotta let go. You gotta bike yourself. And that's sort of, I think that's the lesson that many times they have given me. It's that hands off. Okay, you're on your own. You've got to do this by yourself. Now you have to experience the medicine on your own without feeling us around you. But I have been very blessed because when we talk about ancestral medicine, for me, it has been the medicine that I saw my tias offer our community in Mexicali, where I was born, Mexicali, Baja California. We are descendants of Yaqui people from San Miguel de Orcasitas, Sonora. And when they left our community in Sonora to come to Kumeyaay land, they were still able to bring their practices, many of their practices, their healing practices with them. So ancestral medicine for me is the memory of watching my tias help our neighborhood kids. I grew up in the barrios of Mexicali, and even today, I think it's the third poorest barrio in Mexicali, and Mexicali is a huge city. It's the state of Baja California, so you can imagine what it's like today, but even more so, I'm 65, so back when, 1958, 59, 60s, it was dirt floor, but it was a very tight community. And our neighbors would just show up with their kids, un empache or caída de mollera. And so I watched my tias doing that. That's ancestral medicine. At that time, I didn't have the words for that because it's just what we see our parents doing. So
Of
to me,
course.
that's medicine. It's still there, and to see now that I've reconnected it more deeply with my cultural ways, to see and listen to friends from, say, Pascua Yaqui describing their grandparents, how they did their limpias, how they helped their community. It's just exactly what I saw my tias and my tios doing. And so for me, that's part of ancestral medicine, part of my ancestral medicine. But along with that is also teachings that I've received in my dreams, during my dreaming. That's ancestral. So when we say medicine, it's like an umbrella of many things.
That's, you know what, and that's why I asked that question, because everybody defines it different. But the core, of what you were saying for me, and because this has been my experience, speaking with other people about it, it has come back to what feels good for you to do in your body, like your intuition and trusting spirit within yourself to help guide you. It's not always necessary, because somebody else's medicina is not my medicina. Una hierbera, that parteras, all of these things, that is their medicine. Even though I've seen it or I've witnessed it, if I'm being honest with me, that's not my medicine, but I could recognize that as medicina. I could recognize that as very powerful medicina. And I think it's really important. And that's why I asked this question, like, what is your medicina? Because I feel that some people, when they're beginning, and this happens to many of us. I'm not going to, say everybody does this, but we all try different things, right? What resonates with us as we're trying, because some people didn't have the guidance, right? Some of us didn't have our abuelitas, our bisabuelas or tias that we grew up with. My mom came here, and when she was pregnant with me, and we didn't have any family, we didn't know anybody here. And so a lot of the things, going back to the rancho and being with my abuelita, I would learn things, here and there. But for many of us, we were trying to find our way and trying to reconnect with the medicina. So I always love hearing stories of, what everybody's medicina and where does that stem from and what memories does it bring back and how have you been able to nurture that and connect to that? Because everybody's medicina is important, because everyone has medicina, and it doesn't need to look like anybody else's in order to incorporate it into your life and to believe in it and to nurture it and to grow it. So many times I think we see ourselves and we compare ourselves, right, with what everybody else is doing and what everybody else looks like, but I think it's really important that your medicina and what it is for you and what calls to you. You also need to nurture that and know that that's your gift from Creator if you're brave enough to step into it and respect it and understand it and take the time to learn, because it's not just like, oh, I'm doing this. We've had this conversation, right? We're not just going to be, we had this conversation, right? We're not just going to proclaim something without, let's be real, because there's a lot of that happens too. You can't just take a course for, a weekend and proclaim yourself a this with the
Right, but yet,
doing.
but and I know
I know.
we see that often on social media of young, and I, from my age, of course, everybody's young now, but I see so many younger people after spending, I say, a year with someone, actually giving themselves the title of curandera. I've had younger women who are on this path get very upset because I will tell them, I'm sorry, you can't call yourself a curandera. You're not a curandera yet. You're a curandera in training. You are, it takes years of service, of doing limpias, of offering pláticas, of working with plants. Even if you're not yet better, we're probably going to work with certain plants, nurturing that relationship, learning the protocols. When you reconnect to our communities, part of the reconnection is really making the effort to relearn our protocols. How do we connect with our elders? How do we do that in a respectful way? Because so many younger folks, especially those who are second generation here in the United States, some of the connection to our cultural ways in Mexico have become frayed. We have forgotten how we show respect to elders. So
Yes, we have.
part of reconnecting to our medicine is not just the medicine itself, but it's to our culture as a whole. And
Yeah.
being able to set aside what we're learning on this side of the border and saying, I've got to be humble, I have to be generous, I've got to be respectful, I have to learn how to navigate again with these elders in a way that doesn't make me an igualada. I don't know how many of you speak Spanish, but you know what igualada mean is, right? An igualada is someone who sets themselves at the same level as like their parent or their grandmother or grandfather. And we're not. We have to be humble. We have to be humble and take our time and be patient with ourselves, be patient with our elders, be patient with the dream guidance that we may be receiving. Just because we dream some sort of teaching, that doesn't mean that the next day you're going to set up a curriculum, to set up a workshop and start advertising it on social media. That's really not the way it's supposed to work. You're supposed to really reflect on that and pray with that and ask the guardians of the medicine, is this how I'm supposed to do it? Is this for me? Is this for my community? Or when am I supposed to offer this? Should I just wait? If we ask the questions, generally we get the answers. And
Absolutely.
when you said that question about, connecting with the culture and calling themselves curanderas and what we're seeing, someone came to me, someone who I really care for deeply, and wanted to set up a website and print cards up and call herself a curandera. And this person is phenomenal. She's just wonderful. But I hadn't worked with her that long. So I was trying to explain to her what the protocols and how we do these things. And when I asked, how many limpias have you done this year? No response. How many this in 6 months? Not really, none. So if you haven't had a couple of years of seeing clients at least 3 times a week, and that you're doing limpias and pláticas and experiencing what that brings up for you, then it's I really think that you have to rethink that whole process of why you think it's important to you to give yourself that title.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, and I don't have anything to add to that. I think that's I mean it's true, and you and I had a conversation about that, so that's why I'm like, this is a good time. We're gonna talk we're gonna because sí cierto, you know, these sorts of conversations, especially this topic and how we address our elders and what that means. It's a huge responsibility, and I think that's the part that maybe some people don't understand is it is more than a title. It is more than just you standing in this space. And and this is just me. I don't call myself a curandera. I'm a curanderismo practitioner. And my understanding is your community calls you that. When you have been in service long, when you are showing up for your community gives you that that honor, because it is an honor
Yes.
in my opinion, and that's just my opinion. It is an honor to be seen as somebody that you can go to and knows how to hold space, knows how to hold you, knows how to be able to have the pláticas, practice the limpias, make you feel cared for, respected, honored, and loved, because it's not one way. It is reciprocal. The way that I am being taught, and you know, because I'm still learning and I'm still forever a student, is that we're continuously learning and growing. And my understanding is when you show up and be of service to your community recognizes that, and they give you the honor of being their curandera and that title. And it's more than just a title. It
Absolutely.
as far as I'm concerned. So
I'm completely with you, completely. And that is something that I came to discuss many years ago when I was beginning to offer some pláticas, not workshops or anything, but pláticas. And people asked me for certificates, if I was going to give certificates. I was attending, you know, like a weekend plática. And I said, no, in curanderismo, there are no certificates, at least not the way I've been raised. The certificate is exactly what you described. Your certificate of achievement, of accomplishment, of completion, in quotes, that happens when your community calls you and says, we're going to have a march. For example, we did the Close the Camps march when all the children were being placed in those camps. And they called me if I would offer some words, you know, at the beginning of the march. And when they introduced me, I mean, and this wasn't that long ago, but just every time that happens, my heart just wants to cry with, like, it's just really an honor. And you know, they describe me as, she's our curandera.
yes,
You know,
yeah,
you those words, wow. Me dieron ganas de llorar with happiness and humility, because it's such a big thing to, and they're honoring you, but it's also added responsibility.
absolutely. And you know, I said that, you know, there's nothing else to add, because I think it is an honor and it is a responsibility. So for everybody watching, if you take anything away, please know that when you are doing this work, it is an honor to be of service for your community. Plain and simple, across the board. If you take anything away, it is a responsibility. So, because we can keep going, but we're going to go to the next question, because we have so much to talk about.
I'm having to hold my phone. I'm sorry, I keep moving it.
No, it's okay. Para la otra, I'm going to buy you a little stand so you don't have to hold. Ya la apunté para la otra. Okay. So, what is your favorite way to connect to your ancestors?
Dream time.
Okay, explain that because I think maybe some people maybe don't
Don't know what I
fully
mean by that.
understand.
Okay.
Yeah.
To me, my ancestors have always shown up in my dreams when I'm asleep. So that's how I,
Do you have like a really powerful dream that they just came in and just gave you this amazing message and you knew it was what you needed? You've been praying for it. Yo soy chismosa. Yo quiero saber. A ver.
there have been so many. I have been very blessed. And I could say that maybe it's because the ancestors they said, no, esta es una cabezona, es cabeza dura. We have to be like really clear with her.
You know what? I agree with that because that's one of my favorite ways. Because we say, "Oh, please give me a sign," and we're like, "Not that one. Wait a second, give me that. No, I said no. Like, give me the what?
Yeah,
Okay, aquí estás. Like,
yeah,
here it is. It
right.
is. Yes, I 100% agree with that. And you don't have to share. I was just.
Well, yeah, I mean, um, I'll share one recent one. I have had a lot of serious. I have had many, many dreams since I was probably about 6 years old. And I talk a little bit, I share a little bit of it on my website, but there have just been so many dreams where the ancestors have come and given me teachings, given me regañadas, which are also,
Oh,
people don't like, some of my students call me, dicen, que soy regañona, you know. And I said, but you know what? If you had been taught by my elders, you would have already started crying. You would never have come back. I'm not regañona in comparison to my teachers at all. But over here in the US, I can see where they would think that. But in any case, so in 1998, the ancestors came to me in a dream and said that I got married at age 16, divorced at 19. I was blessed to have a supportive family so that when I realized it was time for me to leave my abusive relationship, I left with my 2 babies in my arms and that's it. Went to my mom's. So I had been single for, when I got married the second time, 50 years. But in 1997, I think it was, these elders came and said that there was a medicine partner for me that I would meet at some point. And
mm,
they said that he would be Buddhist and Native, and that that he and I both had many things to work on ourselves before we would be able to meet. If we did not do certain things in terms of our own physical, spiritual, mental development, then the circumstances needed for us to meet would not happen.
mm.
So fast forward to 2006. This has been a long time. It was in, let's see, I think it was in February of 2006 that the ancestors came to me in a dream and they said, remember that man that we told you about that we have in mind for you as your medicine partner? He is going to show up this year. He is going to be here. And this is something I tell everybody. When you have dreams like this, always ask questions. Try to remember in the dream to ask questions. So I asked them, well, how will I know it's the right man?
Good question.
How will I know that it's him? And they gave me 3 different things that he would have to do so that I would know that it was him. So Arizona Western College asked me if I would teach a class on honoring the medicine. And after a lot of prayer and being in touch with Quetzalcoatlers in Yuma, Arizona, because it's their land, I introduced myself, who I was, my background, and asked for permission and blessings for me to bring my medicine to their land, to their territory at Arizona Western College. So after about a week of meeting with them, they gave me their blessings, told me to go ahead and teach. I told the dean at Arizona Western that that I had gotten all the green lights from the spirits. And I take this all very seriously. I did my meditation. I went to the desert. I prayed for a whole day. I fasted. So I did all of that. And I said, okay, I've got the green light from everybody. I can teach the class. And they said, well, we're going to need a textbook. And I said, well, that's not the way I teach. We don't have books. We're not going to do books. And they said, well, no, you're going to need to get a book. So again, I'm going to skip a whole bunch of part because it'll take forever. I prayed and found a book at Hastings and Yuma when I walked in called Honoring the Medicine. And it was all lit up with light. And then I thought, well, but I just got here. It's the first book I see. Can't be this book. But the book fell at my feet when I started putting it back. So I took it as a sign. And it was a great book. So I wrote to the author and asked him if I could have his permission to use his book in my class. And again, these are all the way I was taught to follow protocols if I think that something is medicine. This is how we honor the medicine, right? So he called me, the author called me a month or so later, and we started talking again and more talking. And he told me that he had gotten guidance to go to Arizona to do a personal retreat for his birthday. He didn't know where I was living or where I was teaching exactly. So I said, well, great. If you come to Arizona, let me know. And, maybe you can come and teach in my class, come and introduce you to my class. So he calls me very sad. He said, I tried to get tickets to, I think he said Tucson. He said, but I couldn't go. I'm really disappointed because I could only get tickets to Yuma. And I said, well, that's where I'm teaching. That's actually where I'm teaching. And so we made arrangements for me to pick him up. And within a couple of hours, he showed me this beautiful beaded medallion necklace Navajo made, which was exactly what the ancestors had shown me in my dream. That was one of the things he would have to show me, was this blue beaded medallion, Navajo beaded medallion, And he went on, and I was like, okay, that's one. And so here we are. We've been married 15 years now. So
okay, I love that story. The ancestors, they know what they're doing out there.
Yeah, I think so. And he's, even though he's Jewish by birth, he is really well known for his practice as a practitioner of Chinese culture and Taiji, Qigong, speaks the language, writes it. He's also equally well trained in native ways. He was adopted by Andrew Nataho up in Sturgeon Lake First Nations in Saskatoon, Canada, Cree Nation family. So there's the Buddhism and there's the native, that just the way they had told me.
I love that. Oh my gosh, that's such a good story. I want to hear the middle, but that's because I'm chismosa. Another day. We're good.
Yes, but that's just an example. There's lots and lots of examples that I could give you. And part of that, because probably some people are wondering, I paid attention to the dreams, to which ones I identify as medicine dreams, not the processing dreams that we have.
Right.
And then the more that we follow the directions, the instructions of the dreams, we're cultivating that. The more guidance we will receive by doing that and keeping track, making sure that, like, I'd like to make sure that the dreams that I'm having, that I am not retroactively making it come true.
Well, that's true too, right?
That's cheating.
That's true too. And I love the asking the questions, because sometimes what happens, it's happened to me when something gets too overwhelming. I'm like, okay, that's just too much. And I just want to shut it down. It's,
right.
But even in our dreams, there are lessons. I'm taking this amazing class right now all about dream planting, which I'm so grateful to Maestra Deborah, another, and but facing ourselves in our dreams, right? Because there's a lot in there that is there to teach us, is there, whether you want to be there or not, they're coming for a reason. So stand your ground, plant yourself, ask the questions. What's your surrounding? What's the feeling? Why are you having so much trouble navigating this? What's coming up? Have a journal next to your nightstand.
Right.
There's all kinds of stuff, because if you don't really remember, wake up, write all those things down. It's a huge help. I love having dreams. I love having ancestors come visit me in my dreams. I've had beautiful platicas in my dreams, with my ancestors, and that was such a beautiful share. Thank you for sharing that. So if anybody has questions, I want to remind, because I do see people, please, down at the bottom, there is a bubble with a question mark. I promise we will get to them at the end. Yes. Okay, so here's our next question. So how has surrendering and embracing your medicina helped guide you in your work?
I didn't always surrender. I think that's one of the challenges of this path for some of us, is surrendering and giving up what we believe was supposed to be our path. With me, I was always negotiating with the spirit. It's like I have two daughters to support. I need to earn money. I cannot be doing the work of a curandera, because if we're following protocols, I can't, it's not a business. We're not doing this to become millionaires. And that was my big fear, because I grew up in, it didn't seem like poverty at the time, but it was. When you've got earthen floors, no matter how lovely they feel to my bare feet, and how lovely the smell of water on the dirt floor before you sweep
Yeah.
it in the outhouse, you want something better for yourself and for your children. So I was always negotiating, let's do this another time, another year, until finally, they said, look, if you don't do this, everything that you have, everything that you have accomplished is going to be taken from you. And by that time, I was the administrator of a psychiatric partial hospitalization program. I was earning good money. I had just bought a house for me and my kids. They warmed to me. I kept dragging my feet. And finally, one of my tios who had passed on came to me in a dream, and he called me by my full name in the dream, like, you know what I mean by the full name, and said, you need to learn the ancestral medicine, not this other stuff that you're thinking that you're doing healing work. No. And that if I didn't do it, that everything would be taken from me. And within a couple of weeks, I lost my job. I couldn't find work. They repossessed my house. They repossessed my car. I was forced to surrender in some ways.
It's, you know, I, so, that's, I think that's just such a powerful share, because I resist the, no, don't be sorry. You can take your water, sip. I know you've been, I know. But we resist so much of the unknown, right? We have so much ego that plays into those pieces of ourselves, whether it's because we think we should be living a certain life, or should have a certain, house or car, or whatever, the things that we should be doing. But there's this almost tug of war that goes on within us, and surrendering is scary.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, that's been my experience. It's been scary for me, because there's comfort in the places that we do know. And then there's also that you have to surrender in in a way for me that it forces you to believe in your medicina. It forces you to believe in those things that maybe you didn't feel that you were ready to take on, right? Those that duality of yourself that is uncertain, and you don't know how you're going to walk that path because it's uncomfortable.
Well, for
It's
me,
uncomfortable.
really, it wasn't so much the walking of the path or that it would be uncomfortable. For me, it was, how am I going to support my family?
Yeah.
That was the bottom line. And that's what I told the ancestors in the dreams too. I said, I've got children to support. I have to put food on the table. I don't want to be poor. I said it that way. I don't want to be poor. And they said, you walk this path, you'll never be rich, but you'll be taken care of. We will take care of you. And I said, okay, if you promise. And they have, I have been supported in my work in different ways. From after I made that commitment, within a week or two, like it's been so long, I was offered a job that allowed me to continue doing my work in the community and be able to go spend weekends at a time, or sometimes a week at a time, with my elder in Baja California to really do my more rigorous training there. So
Yeah.
for me, it
And I
wasn't
think
that I didn't believe in the medicine. Is that I wanted to make sure that I was able to fulfill my obligations to my family.
no, and that's 100% fair. And I think a point that you made was that losing your job and having things repossessed and having those things forced you, it was like it was continued.
Yeah.
Okay, you're not going to make the decision. Okay, then you're still not going to do it. Okay, then it's that
Yes.
constant, right? And
Yes.
that those,
Right.
when you're knee deep in it, you don't always have the clarity of that's what's happening. If you aren't going to move, sometimes the ancestors have no choice, creator has no choice,
Right.
spirit has no choice but to force you to move your ass. It's
Mm-hmm.
just, and it's going to be uncomfortable, and it's going to be tears, and it could be ugly, and it's going to be crying in your closet. And how am I going to do this? I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Así pasa unas veces, right?
Yeah.
It just, and I share a story that, a little over 5 years ago, they found a lump in my throat, and I didn't know what it was. It was just like a regular checkup, and I went to the doctor, and they're like, oh, well, it's thyroid cancer. They did some stuff, and they're like, oh, that's the best cancer to have. And I was like, excuse me? I was like, that's the best one? Okay, okay, well, and I was just like, they're like, oh, well, we can, you know, cut it out, and, I'm just like, cut it. And I went home and started doing all of this research, and, I was just like, I don't want to be on hormone medication for the rest of my life. I don't want to, there was a chance that where it could cut my vocal cords, and I could no longer have a voice. And that for me was at a point in my life where I was so unhappy with my corporate job. And I had been in a place where I had been praying, and I had been asking for a shift in my life, that I wanted to be back in the medicina. I knew that there was something, but I was scared, and I didn't surrender. And I kept doing, all the things that I was supposed to support my family, because it was a good job, and it was all these things. And for me, reflecting on that, that was me having to surrender to, if you're not going to use your voice, we are going to take it away from you. It literally manifested in my
Yeah.
body that
Yeah.
I had to do this thing. And, I did my own thing. I believe in, the medicine of cannabis. I did all of these things. And within 6 months, it had shrunk over, I think, 82%. I didn't have to have surgery. And then it ended up, going away. But that was a huge, I literally had to be like, okay, whatever's coming, pobre, arroz y frijoles todos los días, ni modo.
Yeah.
Así lo hacemos, así lo
Right.
hacemos. We'll be on, right? And so sometimes it's going to show up in your life. So be careful what you ask for, because it's not always going to be pretty, but it's going to be worth it in my case. And I believe in yours too, that,
Absolutely.
uh,
Yeah.
it's going to come. So we're going to do our final question, because I would like to get to some of the questions, and I want to be respectful of your time, because I keep saying this because we can keep talking and talking. Pero no. Okay. So what advice would you give someone who is beginning their connection to their ancestral lineage and their medicina and their magic and all those spaces, for themselves?
Mm. Become a good student.
Mm,
People always ask me, how can I find a teacher? It, and the teachers always say, how can I find a good student? I believe that while it's good for us to read books, it's very good for us to engage in a daily spiritual discipline, whether that's meditation or getting your copalito out and doing a daily prayer, whatever the way you express your connection to the divine is. You still need a teacher. You need a teacher who is respectful, who is no nonsense, who is going to be a good mirror. We're all mirrors. Students are the mirrors of the teacher, and the teacher is the mirror to the student. And that means that it's not always an easy relationship, but it should be an honest one, mutually respectful, especially if we're working with someone who is of the sex to whom we are attracted. So there will be some challenges of that nature in the relationship also. So we have to be willing to embark on a path that is going to challenge us to be the best that we can for ourselves, to be the best expression of the medicine. And part of that is learning, like I said earlier, relearn the protocols of what it means to extend yourself to an elder, to humble yourself enough to be considered a student.
I love that. Because let's be honest, ego gets in the way. And as you get older, you think you know everything, and you think but the truth is you don't know what you don't know.
That's right. Yeah.
And you just don't. And everything that you thought you knew does not apply when you are relearning yourself, when you are relearning your spirit, when you're relearning, the medicine, because everyone teaches it different. Different teachers, different elders, different stories, different ways, different everything. So I love that, being a good student, and not only being a student for somebody in the physical form, but being a good student for your ancestors. When you do start to make a connection with them, listen to be a good student for yourself. When you're sitting in prayer, when you're sitting in meditation, when you're sitting, outside with Creator in the forest and the thing, listen. Being a student isn't always just, having a plática with another person. It's having that conversation with yourself and the messages that come in for you. Because so many times for me, that's part of my unlearning, right? We talked a little bit about, being the colonizer and the colonized. We have both of those thoughts within ourselves. And so having to be in that space where you allow yourself to retrain and remember those spaces within yourself. So being a good student, I love that so much. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And I know people have some questions. So are you ready? Ready for a couple questions?
Sure. Let,
Okay.
let me sit up a little bit better.
I
I feel like my
got-
face is right in your.
Well,
Okay.
we can see your beautiful face. So you're good. All right, here we go. Let's see. We're gonna go down here to the bottom. What if your mom passed years ago and you're learning to listen for signs and communicate? So I guess they're asking communicating with ancestors who have passed and maybe how can you how what advice would you give for learning to listen and read signs that may come through?
Hmm. I always go back to the dreaming. So if in fact, I had a dream about my mother this last night, which was a beautiful dream. She passed 3 years ago, and she was very afraid of dying. So there were certain
Mm,
things that happened after she died that I was very concerned about her spirit, and had to do a lot of ceremony with her. And last night, it was a wonderful dream. She looked beautiful. She looked happy. Her home, the home that that we were raised in, um, had been sort of rearranged, but it was very radiant. It was very bright. She
mm.
was very bright, radiant, and we spoke. And to me, that was a sign that she has really begun her own healing in that other realm. And so to me, when we're attempting to communicate with our ancestors, the first thing is, like I told someone a while back, dead don't mean smart. Just because they're your ancestor and they've passed away 10 years ago, 30 years ago, that doesn't mean that they're wise. That doesn't mean
No,
that they're healed
no,
automatically because they're dead. So you
no.
have to make that connection, make the prayer, the intention that it be a connection with an ancestor that has already achieved a certain level of healing within their spirit in the spiritual realm.
I agree. I agree.
That's
Setting intention and being specific because not
very.
everybody's doing their work over there. Let's be
Mhm.
honest. Sometimes they weren't doing their work here. Over there,
Yeah,
tampoco. Maybe they're just
yeah,
waiting for somebody else to heal. So
yeah.
being intentional, I think um, I love that. So, okay, next question. Curious as to why you made the distinction between magic and your medicine.
hmm Because to me, magic, and this is just me, to me, magic implies European. It implies a European tradition. So that's why I don't like using it. I want to respect my tradition, and practices may be similar because I was in England a few years ago, and in meeting with some practitioners of their ancestral ways, there's a lot
Mhm.
of similarity in the way many curanderas practice their medicine ways here. Nevertheless, to me, it's not magic; it's my medicine.
It's the
It,
medicine. Mhm.
it's the tools, the way that I access the spirit world with my prayers and my language. It's different. It's not European magic tradition. It's Mexican indigenous tradition. Does that make
I-
sense? I wonder if that
Yeah,
was that clear.
yeah, absolutely. And I think, whatever resonates with you, if you're standing in that space, because some people don't like the terminology, bruja,
Right.
for the same
Yes.
reason.
Right.
Some people are like, well, no, I'm not a bruja. If I ask my mom, she's like, bruja. Oh, no. But if I say curandera, she's like,
Yeah.
it has a different response in your body. It
Well,
has
it's
different
because, but it's also
connotations
because, yeah, but
also.
it's also because in our Mexican culture, it's two different things.
It is two different
And,
things.
you know, so
Yes,
and I know people
yes.
don't like it when I say that, but I'm speaking as a Mexican indigenous woman who's, my early childhood ended up into my teens, was living in Mexicali, going back and forth with my family. And a bruja is a practitioner, of course, of spiritual practices. They use their spiritual dones to harm other people. A curandera does not. That's essentially the job description. That doesn't mean that a curandera won't use her spiritual powers to protect someone. And those interventions could be construed as brujeria, but they're not. That's
Right.
why in Mexico, there have been some people say is bruja blanca.
Yes. And
To a
so there
curandera,
is,
right?
yes. Yes. And so there is, so I completely understand that. So here's next question. I'm needing some support in taking on my sister's two young boys after her death. Any recommendations?
Well, that's a hard one because for that, we really would have to have a plática.
That's
I
a
would
deep
want to
dive.
know.
That's a deep dive. But
Yes.
just um that's a little that I agree. That's a little difficult.
Because I don't
Um
know the
Story.
circumstances. I don't
Yeah.
know what the children are going through. Are they, there's a lot of questions that I would have to ask.
Yeah. There's a lot of pieces to that.
Yeah.
So we don't want to skip over, but that might be a one-on-one a plática. So we're just going to pause on that for a second. Okay.
Yeah.
How can I identify what types of medicina I need?
Ask your ancestors.
There you go.
If you can't do it in the dream time, then light a candle and offer your prayer very earnestly. Say what you need and ask that they give you the information that you need in a way that is clear and that it can be understood by you. That's really important. Give me the information that I need in a way that is clear to me so that I can act on it with wisdom, with clarity, with purpose.
I love that. I love that because it's true. I don't think we're often specific enough in the wording where we would even recognize the sign. So make
Right.
sure that you understand
Yes.
when it comes that you'll recognize it. Okay. Those of us who are not first generations and are looking for permission to step into this curandera life, where would you suggest a fourth generationer start?
To me, whether you're first generation, second generation, third generation, fourth generation, the beginning is the beginning. Is first, do you know who your ancestors are? Who are your people? What would their practices would have been like? If you don't know any of that, we are blessed that there are many elders out there in the Mexica tradition that open up their circle to us. If that's what you're talking about, curanderismo from an indigenous perspective. There's also curanderismo from a Catholic perspective. That's very different. The practice is different of a curandera, a Catholic curandera. So first, I think identify your needs, your wants. What is in alignment for you? Is it that you want to explore and find out your own indigenous history? Do you wish to embark on curanderismo from an indigenous, hopefully increasingly free of colonial influences, which is, I think, is very hard to do, but we do our best. Those are the initial questions that I would ask myself. Why are you how is it that you're being called to this path? Is it because there's hashtag curanderismo, hashtag brujita, hashtag, whatever? Or is it that you genuinely have received a call in some way to this path? And are you willing to walk this path even when it's hard? Because like my elder told me, after 3 years, you decide, am I staying on this path? This is the only time you can turn back. If you say yes on your third year of apprenticeship, there's no turning back. And this path is not easy. It's not glamorous. If you think it's glamorous, I really would advise you to spend more time in the community with curanderas in the community. What I used to call, in fact, your teacher and I used to say that we were down and dirty curanderas. You know,
That sounds like
because
her.
right, because we used to laugh because we were not the love and light curanderas. We're like love and light and chingazos curanderas. Because this is how the real path is. It's tough, it's challenging. Sometimes you have to battle spirits, bad spirits. You have to battle people who are threatened by you protecting the people that they're trying to harm.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of pitfalls to this path. So how are you receiving that calling?
Absolutely.
Time? How?
Absolutely. And, you know, just to add, what does curandera and curanderismo mean to you? Like, what does that even mean to you? What does that look like? Not outside what you think it means. Like, what does that mean to you? And I think how would you be of service to your community? Because this isn't about you in that sense. Is like if you're being called, it's because you want to be of service.
That's
And
right.
so, you
If
know,
you
maybe
receive the calling, it's because spirit and the ancestors have seen a spark of light in you that correlates to curanderismo, to being of service. And that's why they call you. And most of the time you get called at an early age for that. Unless there's someone that you have met that says, this person tiene la vibra de potential, and they will say, come and spend some time with me, which is code for maybe I can teach you something, maybe you can learn something, and we can see where this takes us.
absolutely. And, you know, once again, a mirror, seeing something in you that you don't see in yourself.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So, well, we have gone over just a little bit. Are you open to answering a couple more questions? I want to
Sure,
be
a couple
conscious
more.
every
Just
time.
a couple more would be fine.
Okay,
So I'm trying
perfect.
to brace my arm here.
I know. Okay, I'm gonna buy you a stand next time. I'm gonna buy you a stand. I didn't know. No sabía. Okay, here we go. Um, what can I ask or look for as I seek a curandera? It feels like I've reached out to several but haven't gotten responses or something happens to cancel. I simply thought that it wasn't my time to get that type of healing, and frankly, I haven't had the heart to be rejected again.
Mm-hmm. You know, that's really hard. That's a good question, and it's really challenging. There's various reasons why they may not have responded. Maybe they're really super busy. Maybe, believe it or not, curanderas have families who sometimes, like when my mom was, getting very sick, I was spending a lot of time going back and forth to California. So we don't usually announce when we're ill. We don't announce when our families are ill. That's kind of a no-no in curanderismo, that you don't do that. So it's not always about you. And I hope, I want to say this with compassion because I don't want you to feel like I'm attacking you, but it's not always about us. It could be something going on with the people that you reached out to. It could be that they've got, we all have the right to say no to our clients. It's
Absolutely.
not always a yes to our clients. Sometimes it's a no. I had someone reach out to me many years ago who was very upset because I said no to her. And for me, frankly, it's when I say no, I can't help you. There's a reason. It's because either I feel like my particular skill set is not what your needs are. Don't fill your needs. Or it could be, and in this case, spirit. When I pray about whether I should work with someone, I hear a yes or a no. And I heard no, definitely no. And this person was very, very upset. to the point that they came to one of my public pláticas to confront me about why it is that I didn't want to work with them.
Mm.
And they were very hurt. They took it very personally. And I told them, it's not you. Spirit told me that I am not the right person for you to work with. So you need to find the right person. So there's all of those aspects. But when someone is reaching out to a curandera, I'm always surprised when someone reaches out to me and they know nothing about me.
Mm.
Nowadays, we're all pretty much online, except for the barrio curanderas, the elder curanderas who are in the neighborhood. Sometimes they don't have a website. But we usually have something online, or in your community, you ask around, what are they like? Do you know what their practice is? I'm not an herbalist. I use plants, but I'm not an herbalist. Hago sobadas, but I'm not a massage therapist. So find out what their practice is like. Are they, do they live with their integrity? Are they fear-based in their practice? Because to me, when someone says like, ay, miro una sombra detrás de ti, tienes que darme $500. You know what I'm saying? I see a big shadow over you that's like death, and if you don't give me $500, then you might die. And then you go see them and they say, well, it's going to be another $500. I mean, those people exist. I've come across them. People have come to me because they don't know what to do with people like that. So if someone is already doing those things, that's who you don't want to go to. You want to go to someone who is ethical, who, even if they charge, some people have problems with curanderas charging. I think that I myself don't charge for healing work, but I charge for presentations, and I charge a lot.
Mm-hmm.
That's my balance. But those who charge, is it in accordance with your community?
Right.
Because every community has a different economic status. So if they are charging $1,000 for a limpia, and you're living in a Chicano community, most of us can't afford that. So what does that say about their level of service to their people?
Absolutely. And I'm gonna leave that one there. I saw a couple of people say there are boundaries. I say we, just because in as part of that community, and you and I had a conversation. We don't always put out on social media what's going on behind the scenes. We show you what we want to show you. We have lives and we have different things, and there are boundaries that need to be set. There's a lot of work, and I call it work because it is work. It is, being in that space, holding space, having pláticas, having conversations, having, posting the inspiration or the quote or the lesson or the thing. It is a lot of stuff, and I agree 100%.
And aside from what people don't understand too, that for many of us who are doing this work, the work begins before you get to my office. And usually for a good week or so after you leave, after you think it's all done, I'm still praying for you. My candle is still lit for you.
100%. I mean, I'm sure even before this, I was sitting in prayer and I was, calling in and making sure that, I was able to hold space for you and for the people here, not to take on anybody else's stuff and whatever message.
Right.
It's right. You know.
I was doing the same thing.
Okay, we're gonna do the last question. The last question. I'm sorry. I know that there's so many. We appreciate you, but we're going to just do the last question to be respectful of my Star Grace's time and everybody who is here. Let's see. Okay. All right. What advice can you give to someone who didn't grow up with a tia or a mom who practiced curanderismo? I feel it in my bones, but I feel lost. I feel lost in my journey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it goes back to what I said earlier. Primeramente is this really what you want to do? Why do you feel that you want to do this? Have the ancestors Spirit called you, what are the signs that you are being called to this path? Find a teacher. Find a teacher, read some good books about curanderismo. Not just the glamorous, you can be anything you want, like the fire, do the limpia thing. No. Half of these books that I'm seeing nowadays, some of the material shouldn't be out there, it shouldn't be in public. And I'm sorry, there's a lot of capirotada out there. My students hear me say that all the time. Capirotada is I see people who are saying it's curanderismo. They're showing people how to do Buddhist mudras with their hands. They're using songs from other European traditions that have nothing to do with curanderismo. That it's not even like they arrived with the conquistadores. No, not even that. There's a lot of capirotada. So find out what is your goal with curanderismo? What is it that you want to learn?
And
If you want the real curanderismo, like in Mexico, curanderismo, then maybe you need to find out some elders that are nowadays, again, there are elders in Mexico who are online giving teachings. Don Laurencio, who gives beautiful teachings
it's
online.
amazing.
I met him once or twice, and I would love to go study with him.
I'm
There's never ending learning for us.
yes, and here
Mhm.
I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Please go.
Yeah. No, I was just so do your research and find out a little bit about the people that, you know, don't look for the glamorous. If they're looking glamorous online, no. It's okay
I
for our makeup on because thank God for my color. But no, don't be like, if they're the ones who are always thinking about glamorous and setting themselves up to have every answer, every limpia, to me, those are red flags. There's a lot of us who are doing serious work and not announcing it in books or on media, social media.
and
And yet people know about us. So find out.
with that said, all I'm gonna add is just because you are being called to curanderismo as a healing art does not mean that you have to go out and practice in your community. You can be called to be healing yourself, to be healing your lineage, to be healing forward. I think
Exactly.
there's a very big misconception that when you are being called to this healing, like some other types of work that you do, just because you've been called to maybe study Reiki or maybe study Buddhism or maybe study, these different healing modalities that aren't necessarily your own, doesn't mean that you're supposed to go out and teach it. Doesn't mean that you're supposed to go out and do this for anybody else but yourself. And so I think that's a really important distinction because I have met people and I've spoken with some people who's like, oh, I want to do this so I can go, okay, well, maybe that's not for you. Maybe that's not the path. Maybe it's so you could understand your healing, so you
That's right.
could go inward, so you can do this thing. And so just because you are being called to learn, maybe you're also just being called to heal yourself.
But that's
And
part of the calling. That's part of the learning. That's a
yes,
misconception that I'm glad that you're pointing out. Because when I say a calling and when I say look for a teacher, the first thing a teacher is going to do is make you look at yourself. It's going to
oh
tell you,
yeah,
here's the limpias, do it. Te vas a hacer esto, you're going to do this, you're going to go walking, you're going to sweep, you're going to do, they give you tasks to do, have nothing seemingly on the surface to do with healing. You're not doing for others. It's all about finding out yourself, who you are, where those aspects within you that still need healing, that need to be brought to the surface. That's why an apprenticeship is so rigorous and so challenging, because it's not what you all think, that you're going to go to the teacher, all of a sudden you're doing limpias with bandanas on and you've got your poposhkomit and you're doing the tradition, the usual poposhkomit up in the air with the light hitting you on your forehead, and it's the classic picture. No, you're out there, you're cleaning the toilets, you're running, like for me, I used to run up and down a hill with buckets of water because my elder didn't have running water. That was what I had to do. And he would say, like, go sit over there and tell me what the land is telling you. Tell me what's there. And I would lay down, because if I sleep on land, I know information is given to me. I would have to go repeat. And sometimes he would say things to me that I would cry. I was like a child. I hate him. I'm never going back. And then I'd be back the next day because that's my calling. It's not glamorous. It's hard work. It's hard inner work before you can show your heart to your community, before your heart in your hands can help heal someone, before you have to learn how to make ofrendas to the land, to the plants, to speak to them. All of that has to take place way, way before you can ever think you're going to go and teach someone anything.
100%. The maestra has spoken. Okay, you heard it all here. She spoke. Did all the things.
La regañona has spoken.
Yo no dije eso. You
Pero
said
con
it yourself.
Lo digo con cariño porque los quiero.
No, sí sabemos, sí sabemos. Maestra Grace, muchas, muchas gracias. Thank you so much for being here, for sharing your wisdom, for sharing your stories, for sharing your energy and all, your beautiful words. It was so important, and I am so grateful and feel so blessed that, that I got to share your very first Instagram live. Hopefully que se picó will come and do it again sometime.
Sí, claro, claro. Thank you so
Yes.
much for inviting me. I really appreciate you. Appreciate the light that you radiate. Your medicina is beautiful. I'm glad that you're sharing it in this way so that whoever listens to these pláticas, whether it's with you and me or with other of your guests, I know that they're all receiving the blessings that they need to receive. And I ask that Creator continue to bless you, continue to bless everyone who's on this IGA with us right now, that you all get the resources and the help and the blessings that are going to help you on your walk.
Yes, thank you everybody for coming. Time is one thing that we never get back, and I'm always so grateful for all those who choose to share, whether it's 1 minute or the whole hour and 45 minutes or whatever that we're here, because you don't get that time back, but choosing to be here and to listen and to take it all in, I'm always so grateful. If anybody would like to reach out to you, I know you're having a class that's coming up that you're teaching. Please, please, please share how people can get in touch with you, how they can sign up for your class. Please.
Gracias, yes. The call of the ancestors, right? I'm answering the call of the ancestors to teach a 7-week course through the Shift Network on Dia de Muertos, talking about healing, the origins of Dia de Muertos, cultural appropriation versus cultural appreciation, other worldwide traditions, bringing people back to reconnect with their own historical ways of not worshiping, but venerating their ancestors. And that starts next Tuesday, September 6th. There's still time to register. Just go to my website, curanderismo.org, and people can contact me through there. There's also information and links to the Shift Network course. And hopefully I'll see some of you in that Dia de Muertos circle, and we'll have some time for Q&A there. And I think we're also setting up a community Facebook page so we can continue the interaction even after the course. And to me, all this is part of my calling. Just like back in 2013, the ancestors kept poking my shoulder when Disney wanted to trademark Dia de Muertos. And the ancestors were like, you need to do something. And I started that change.org petition, in which got so many signatures in such a short period of time that I had CNN and Wall Street Journal and everybody calling me, which was really shocking to me. But that's what happens when the ancestors are nudging you and you answer the call. So if anybody here really feels that the ancestors are calling you to this path, do your work, do your research, reach out in a good way to elders in your community. offer tobacco, offer the protocols, follow the protocols on how to reach out and introduce yourself in a good way, and ask for if you can sit in circle with someone to learn from them. Doesn't mean you're an apprentice or a student, but that you're learning, you're beginning to learn. Offer to help. That's the big thing. Go to community gatherings and offer to help. That's how you learn. Offer to help. One of my dear friends in Los Angeles, Michelle Castillo, has been a relentless defender of her sacred land there in Pavonga, and she could always use help. So looking at community, who is defending their land, who is protecting water, who is doing the work of the ancestors to protect Mother Earth, go and volunteer. You get to meet the elders. You get to learn by observing how people approach them. That's a really good way to start on your path.
I love that. Curanderismo.org. If you're not following Maestra Grace, please, please, please head over. She has her social media, Instagram. I know you also have Facebook. The classes that she's coming up in spirit of continuing the conversation and the storytelling of La Cultura and our heritage and all those beautiful pieces. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. Maestra Cici always said, listen, when you don't need to say anything but to listen and be of service. And there's so many beautiful teachings out there if we just sit and listen. And so for everybody who came, thank you for sitting and listening. And once again, Maestra Grace, thank you for being here. Que pasen buenas noches. Thank you everybody for coming. Bye everyone.
Buenas noches.